All right, Survivor fans, welcome back to our Gold Derby Slugfest. I'm here with Matt Noble. And Matt, we want to talk about Drew Christie, first of all. Drew threw the immunity challenge, and he ended up being voted out. And also, Keith Nail made this really, really bad blunder. Are these two of the worst Survivor players of all time, do you think?
I think maybe Drew could be. Like, I really think Drew was so bad this whole episode. Like, and I
Hmm.
don't even know where to start with Drew sort of just completely like blowing it. Like he started off by he decided to throw the challenge without talking to anyone else on the team while he's been on Exile Island, which means he's been completely away from the tribe dynamics and like he'd have no sense of where the numbers or the position is. Um, and it wasn't even like because he knew his brother was in trouble and he wanted to save his brother or anything. It was just because he'd created this idea of a girls' alliance that didn't exist, and that's not really how the numbers were in his tribe. And then, so he threw the challenge single-handedly. Then, after he threw the challenge, he got back from the challenge, and he started talking about getting rid of Kelly in front of Kelly or right near Kelly so she
Right.
could hear. He was telling girls the reason he wanted to get rid of Kelly was because all the girls were going to gang together, and he just talked about it. So there's actually that he almost like that. Then the girls thought, oh, this is a bad thing. Let's all get together and vote rid of Drew. He sort of created the girls' alliance by talking about the girls' alliance that then voted him out. So it's almost like, he lost the challenge that sent them to tribal council, and then he did the talking that got the girls to band together to vote him out. So it's almost like completely at his own hands he sent himself home this week.
Right. And he actually did an interview with me here at Gold Derby, and he said he was completely delusional. He said it was 11 days without food and water. He kind of went crazy out there. But what he said, which is really interesting, is that he told Jeremy and Natalie and I think John that he was going to throw the challenge, and they were all in agreement that they would throw the challenge. That's why Jeremy and John sat out of the immunity challenge. But we didn't see any of that on TV. So the way it was edited makes Drew look out to be like the stupidest player ever. But really, he's probably just like a top three stupid player. He's probably not the stupidest of all time. But isn't that interesting that they edited that part out of the
Mm. Yeah, that is interesting. That like, so Jeremy and John decided to throw a challenge. They sat out of the challenge.
episode? Right. And they all agree
Okay,
that
that is
Drew.
interesting because like because everyone else in the tribe was trying pretty hard.
Hmm. And
I
they
guess
give Drew
splitting
that
and running.
position. They give Drew the position to throw the hooks or throw the what were they frisbees or something onto the hook. And so
Well,
when you
here's the funny thing too, that like even if that's the case, it seemed like John, Jeremy, and Drew all wanted to throw the challenge, but they were on completely different pages as to why they wanted to throw the challenge,
that's true.
because they all wanted to vote for someone different.
Yeah, so that really didn't make a lot of sense, did it? I mean,
Yeah.
let's talk about those tribal votes because if all of the guys had stuck together, it would have they could have all voted against one person and got that person out. But one vote went to Keith, one vote went to Julie, one vote went to Kelly, one vote went somewhere else. And so when you have a tribe divided like that, obviously if you just need 3 votes to get someone out, and they actually I think they had 5 votes to get out Drew. They didn't even need that much.
Hmm. Yeah, that was really, really, I didn't understand it at all. I don't know how you would go to tribal council without talking to your alliance and just knowing who the person to vote for is. Like,
Mhm.
it's sort of like Survivor season one to go to people, like to just go, oh, let's just vote for who we want to vote for and see what happens on the like. You should know who in your alliance is voting for who. I know
Right.
sometimes we have people make up their mind at tribal council because they know there's like 3 votes that way and 4 votes that way, and they can change their vote and if someone says something and no, but it should be you know who people are voting for in your alliance at least,
Right.
and you know to vote with them or to blindside them. Not as an alliance, you're voting in 3 different directions.
Right.
So that was
Because
just,
then
I just don't understand it.
it's not an alliance then. If everyone's voting a different way and there's no agreement, then you don't have an alliance. You just have people hanging out on an island.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about Keith, because I also think Keith made a huge mistake this week. He supposedly was in alliance with Jeremy, this firefighters alliance that has been going on since I think second episode, when they both went to exile, or when Keith went to exile with Val, I think is when that came about. And all of a sudden, Keith throws Jeremy under the bus and says that he has an idol, which he didn't. And that got people talking about Jeremy maybe being untrustworthy. And then Keith goes and finds the idol, one of the greatest moments. He finds the idol that he accused somebody else of having, and he kept it a secret. He didn't tell anyone.
Yeah. Like, this was very bad play from Keith. And I don't, like, and again, it's sort of like very confusing for me. Like, I could understand if we heard from Keith that, you know, that this was some sort of strategy, sort of like, you know, I don't like Jeremy like running the show here, and I'm going to get everyone against him, and then they get, then he goes, so then he's throwing Jeremy under the bus, but it didn't even seem like he was trying to throw, like he seemed sort of like it was just so bizarre. Like if he was trying to make a move against Jeremy, it would sort of make sense and try to take away, like, you know, he wanted to take over Jeremy's position as running the tribe. That he then goes, oh, I think he's got the idol, let's go get him. So then they get him, and then they vote then he finds the idol, and then they surprise Jeremy with it and stuff. But that's not what he was trying to do. It seemed like he just was telling people what was on his mind for no reason.
Not self-aware at all.
Yeah. And then he went, found the idol. Well, but the good news, like, okay, Keith didn't get voted out, which was good for him last night. He didn't play the idol, so he's still got that in his pocket. He's not in the worst. His son's still in the game. He's not in the worst position though, Keith. Like, it's very concerning that he'd make a play like that, and he's definitely burnt a bridge with Jeremy. But like, he's not in the worst position out of everyone in this show.
Right. And for the second time this season, we've had people trying to barter with Jeff at the reward challenge. I just love Jeff's look this time. He was like grinning ear to ear. He's like, "No chance, you guys. You've already made your deal. I'm not going to do another deal with you." That was really funny.
Yeah. Drew was great at Tribal Council. Not Tribal Council, at Hero Arena, where he tried to swap the stuff, and also how quickly he was to volunteer to go with John's girlfriend Jacqueline to Exile Island. I would have found very concerning if I was John.
Right.
I've got this. I'll go with it. Don't worry, man.
Right. We actually talked about this a few weeks ago. Would you volunteer to go to exile if you knew there was like a
what? Sorry.
A couple of weeks ago, me and you and Rob, I think, were talking about if we would ever volunteer to go to exile. I think I would. I think I would go if I knew there would be a clue. Otherwise, I wouldn't. But if I knew there would be a clue to an idol, I would definitely volunteer and go.
Yeah, it's hard. I definitely wouldn't want to go the first episode. Maybe a bit later, if I'm confident in where I stand with my tribe, I'd like go. Or if I knew I was in a lot of trouble in my tribe and I know I need that idol, like, or that clue to the idol, maybe too. But I don't think Drew was going to Exile Island because he wanted it was a strategic decision. I thought he just like wanted to help out his mate John by.
Oh, you thought that he wanted to like hang out with a hot blonde chick.
I think he was sincere with like wanting to help out, like, and not like, I don't think he was trying to make any moves or anything. I don't think Drew was trying to do anything too douchey. But it just it wouldn't come across well if my girlfriend's out there and there's like a guy just chomping at the bit to get out there with her. And I think he was sort of going like, oh, this is my mate's girlfriend. I've got to make sure she's looked after, like, rather than, oh, I've got to get that clue to the idol. Like,
one of the questions we ask at Gold Derby every week is, which duo do you think will last the longest? And there's only 5 left. There's Josh and Reed, Baylor and Missy. So this is the order. Josh and Reed, people think they will last the longest. Then Baylor and Missy, then Wes and Keith, then Dale and Kelly, and then John and Jacqueline. Do you kind of agree with that order? Do you think Josh and Reed are going to last the furthest as just being the one of the last couples left in the game? Because I think it could happen.
I think it could. The hard thing is that next week, the next week on Survivor has alluded to a tribe swap, which will completely change the dynamics and could leave some couples in the cold, could leave some couples in good position. So it's very hard to know at this stage exactly. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good ranking. I think I probably have Baylor and Missy in first and Josh and Reed in second. But yeah, it's hard. You got to look at who's a couple with 2 people that are both seeming to be not at the bottom of the pecking order. And I know Reed. I've been staying away from Josh and Reed because Reed hasn't seemed to be on the numbers on his side of the tribe. But with a tribe swap next week, it's going to get thrown up anyway. So I think Reed is playing a good under the radar game and doesn't look like to be a particular threat at the moment. So I think Josh and Reed are good up there. I think Missy and Baylor are good up there because I don't think either of them are seen as huge threats at the moment.
The last time they did Blood versus Water, there was no tribe mix-up, right? It was that each tribe was separated until the merge. Is that right? Because I don't remember.
I think they switched it.
Oh, they did. Okay. Because I was wondering, whenever they do the tribe shakeups, I don't like it. Like they always have, like last year or last season was Brawn versus Brains versus Beauty, and they had that maybe for 3 weeks. And then they combined them into 2 tribes and completely eliminated the big twist of the season after like 3 episodes. And I mean, this one is still going to be Blood versus Water, but some of the blood will be on the same team, presumably, if the trailer or the sneak peek that we saw comes true. I never really like the tribe switches. I like it when it's one tribe versus the other tribe the whole time. I actually like when one tribe completely eliminates the other one. I don't know why. I'm kind of masochistic, but I love that.
Marcus, a big fan of the Palau season of Survivor.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Yeah, that is one of my favorites too. Actually, I really like that season. But I like the tribe switches because I think you have a more exciting post-merge game when you got tribe switches. I think like you get less of the. I don't really have much of a stake before the merge in whether I prefer it or not. I don't mind if a tribe just gets decimated either. But I think after the merge, you get less of those just one tribe picking off another tribe after the merge. Like we saw in like seasons like South Pacific and Redemption Island and even to a lesser degree Heroes versus Villains, which was a great season. But you saw still that very big line between the heroes and the villains after the merge, and it was hard to crack the group that had the majority. So I like it when they switch them, mix it up. And a Blood vs. Water season, though, you're always going to get mixing up after the merge anyway. And maybe they're just worried that, you know, if it keeps going, you're not going to get any pairs by the time we reach the merge. Like, so you're not going to get... They want to see the dynamics of, will you work with your loved one? Will you vote out your loved one? And so far, we haven't had a whole couple voted out. So it means we've only got 5 loved one, partnerships left. Right.
I think I mentioned this last Slugfest, but when Sierra voted out her mother, Laura, in Blood vs. Water 1, that's one of the greatest Survivor moments of all time. I want to see that happen again. So maybe everything I just said about not liking tribe switches, bring on the tribe switch, because I want to see Baylor vote out Missy. I want to see Kelly vote out her dad Dale. It'll make such great television.
Well, I wouldn't put that past Kelly because she is the mastermind of this season of Survivor, according to Drew. She's calling all the shots. She's the one to beat. How high is she in our Gold Derby predictions? Because I know she was pretty high last week, so I think maybe Drew was checking the Gold Derby odds, and that's why he thought she was running the show.
Right. Last week she was number 1. Currently she is tied for number 2. There's a 3-way tie for number 2. And I'll just run through this real fast. Jeremy actually is number 1. He's been at the top of the leaderboard this whole time. People just love Jeremy. I think he's playing a great game. And in that number 2 slot, we have Josh and Reed and Kelly all tied for number 2. And just as a reminder, if you guys vote at Gold Derby, your vote influences these odds. So the more people that pick Kelly to win, the higher she'll go. The more people that pick Julie to win, the higher she'll go. Although she is in last place right now to win, so I don't know. She'll have to get a lot of votes in order to get up there.
Yeah.
And then as far as who people think will go home next week, Julie is a number 1 to be voted out, and then John, he hasn't really done much except for losing the Flint. And then Keith and Jacqueline and Dale. So that's the top 5 for people who will go home next week.
Yeah, I think Keith could be in trouble, but he's got an idol. So if he knows to play it, if he can be self-aware enough, show a bit more self-awareness and play it, he could save himself.
Right, because John Rocker just left last week with an idol in his pocket. So if you had an idol, how would you play it? Would you play it automatically just the first time you have a chance, just play it because people are going to try to get you out? Or would you keep it until the bitter end and hope you don't give it up?
I'd probably be more likely to keep it just because I think, like, playing it wrong can be pretty damaging too. Like, if people don't know you have an idol and all of a sudden you play one and they go, whoa, you didn't trust us? You thought we were voting for you tonight? Like, you didn't tell us you had an idol? Like, you got a lot of explaining to do. But playing the idol's really hard. And I think we can, like, laugh at people like John Rocker and Andrea and all these people for walking away with idols in their pockets. But it's actually, like, really hard to be, like, not in every situation, but, you've got to read and you don't know who people have voted for. Like, there are people are often surprised when they're voted for at tribal council, and there's a risk in playing it when you're not getting votes. There's a risk in playing it when you do get votes. There's a risk whatever you do, and it is, like, you do have to be very perceptive to know when to play the idol. Which is why we don't see the idol getting played, like, an awful lot well on Survivor. Like, you often don't see the idol getting used and it working. Like, that's probably less than once a season. Like, even Tony last year wasn't able to play his idol correctly, and he was a great player of the game.
Mm-hmm. And then last season also they had the idol with special powers, which would have allowed Tony to use it after the votes were cast. He didn't need it. He ended up winning the game. But I wonder if they're going to bring that back this year, because that special powers one came after the merge. So if they do it again this year, which I think they should, it'll come maybe in 3 or 4 episodes from now.
Yeah, that idol's an interesting one. Like, that's an easy one to play. You just keep it in your pocket, and if you get voted out, you play it.
That one,
I don't like that idol as much.
I wouldn't put it around in my pocket. I would put it around my neck, and wear it everywhere I go, just to let people know there's no point in voting for me because you're going to waste your votes. But it only lasts till like the top 4, so after that, I'd be screwed.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how Yule used it in Survivor Cook Islands, that he pretty much said, look, I've got this idol, you can't vote for me, and it took him all the way through the final the final tribal council, because you could use it even more back then. I don't know, like, it depends how many people are left in the show when you find it, but, like, I think the problem with doing it like that, Marcus, is like let's say you do that. We're both on Survivor and you go, look, no point in voting for me, guys, because I've got the necklace. Like, I'll be trying to think of, like, how do we split the vote to get rid of that idol? Like, how I'd be playing it, and I'd be trying to think of like how can we coalesce everyone to get this idol out of play.
Gotcha.
Like unless you're in my if you're in my alliance, Marcus, obviously I would not be doing that. But
oh no, I would not be in your alliance. I would vote you out because you have way too much knowledge on Survivor. You would be the Kelly of the season. I would be the Drew. You would be my Snake. I would try to get you out.
Oh my! Well, at least I know where you stand. If we're on Survivor together,
right. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts on this one before we sign off here?
It was really like an episode where we saw a lot of bad strategy, and I think it can be a bit it was entertaining to watch, and I really liked it. But it could be a bit concerning that we might not be in store for the most exciting season ahead of us. That being said, there are we didn't see a lot of Baylor. We didn't see a lot of Josh. We didn't see a lot of hopefully we didn't see a lot of Wes, like a lot of people in the other tribe. Maybe and hopefully people like Natalie on the other tribe didn't do anything wrong. She did well to take control of the vote. They're hopefully there are some people that are playing the game well or have the capacity to play the game really well, and we get to see that. And I think hopefully this episode we're just focusing on the people who weren't playing the game well. And Jeremy really wanted to get rid of Keith. He couldn't get that done, which is a bit concerning that he couldn't control the vote. But he was the one who voted with the girls against Drew. So he knew where he could tell what was happening. He was able to get on board. It may have meant that he was in talks with the girls beforehand. So at least that shows, as bad as he was in some areas, of being maybe a bit too focused on Keith and not being able to get his way, did show Jeremy at least was on the right side of the numbers and the right side of the vote.
Right, and maybe that's why he jumped up to #1 this week on our leaderboards, because he did make that switch at the end, which shows he's playing the game more than most people this season. Although you and me are both still rooting for Baylor, and we're going to have a Q&A article between us coming up pretty soon where we just say why we're rooting for her, because you'll see in the article, but I think she's a great player and she's really underrated, basically.
Yeah, I think she ticks a lot of good boxes, and I haven't seen too many red flags from her yet. But yeah, I think my second pick now is Josh. I think it's in my second slot to win, because I think we've seen a lot of good stuff from him in the show.
Yep, I would agree.
And there's been a good I could see them telling the story of Josh here. Not enough for me to pick him as #1, but yeah, they're sort of my top two, Baylor and Josh at the moment.
Yep. All right, everyone, go to Gold Derby and make your predictions, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah.